Benjamin Daniel Breedlove, an 18-year-old American internet personality from Austin, Texas, died suddenly on Christmas Day, 2011. The legacy he leaves behind comes in the form of a 2-part video uploaded to YouTube. Millions watch Ben as he holds up a series of white index cards and explains his story from the first time he died and saw a bright light above him at age 4, to his most recent near-death experience that occurred exactly 1 week before dying. At 13 months old, Ben was diagnosed with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, which causes the muscles of the heart to thicken, making it difficult to pump enough blood, which can lead to sudden death. When Ben is 4 years old, he has a seizure that lasts 45 minutes, causing him to slip in and out of consciousness. As 2 nurses lead him down the hall on a stretcher, he describes seeing a pure white light that engulfed his surroundings in every direction. He points to the ceiling above him and excitedly tells his mother, "Look at the bright light. Do you see that, Mama? A pitch white light." She doesn't see anything. The little boy continued, "I was lying there, staring up at the ceiling, and there was this huge bright white light right above me, about as long and wide as the stretcher. As I was saying this, everything was slow and muffled, just like in the movies when a soldier is on the battlefield and a bomb has just exploded right by him, and all the sound is tuned out of his head. I got a feeling that I didn't have to care about anything that was happening in the world at the moment. I couldn't see anything else around me, not even in my peripheral vision. Just this bright white light above me. Nothing could be heard. Everything was calm. When I was in that hall, I was definitely not thinking it was an angel, but a part of me knew that it was." After his first brush with death, things settled down until the summer of 2011, when Ben needed surgery to have his tonsils removed. During the procedure, and under anesthesia, he goes into cardiac arrest and is revived, but has no memory of it. When Ben reaches high school, all of his family and friends are aware and supportive of his heart condition. Westlake High School nurse, Holly Hubble, had worked as an emergency room and intensive care nurse since 1978. On December 6, 2011, Ben was found lying purple and unconscious in the student common area. Nurse Holly shouts for an AED while she performs CPR. When the defibrillator arrives, she places it over his chest and waits for the prompt. No shock advised. Holly knows what this means. The patient had flatlined and was likely dead. She continues to perform CPR as 911 is called and an ambulance is dispatched. She doesn't give up. When the EMS crew arrived, Ben's heart had stopped beating for more than 3 minutes. Paramedics quickly cut off Ben's black North Face jacket and t-shirt so they could get the AED into a better position before clearing the area and attempting to shock his heart back to life. Despite being unconscious, Ben was able to hear and feel everything going on around him. He could feel the defibrillator gauze pads on his bare chest, and when one of them pressed their fingers against his throat and in front of his nostrils to check for air, Ben clearly heard them say, "He's not breathing and he has no pulse." As he lingered in this strange limbo, he recalled how he couldn't believe what he was feeling, hearing, and seeing. Somehow, he was able to watch the paramedic place his hands on the AED pads that were stuck to his chest before turning to his assistant and shouting, "Go." In that instant, Ben remembered bracing in anticipation of the electrifying pain, but it never came. Instead, he is engulfed in blackness before being thrust into pure white light. Again, he sees no walls, only the pitch white light he encountered as a child. In front of him stood a full-length mirror, where he sees himself standing handsomely dressed in a dark suit, with a hand resting on his shoulder. Tracing his eyes up the hand's reflection, he meets its owner's face. It belonged to his favorite rap artist, Kid Cudi. Marveling at their handsome reflection, Ben thinks to himself, "Damn, we look good," and recalls feeling more confident in that moment than he had ever felt in his entire life. When he looks at the mirror again, he notices there is more to see than just his appearance. His entire life was being played out before him. In a sense of time that couldn't be explained, he was able to stand in front of that mirror and watch every moment he had ever experienced. Then, Kid Cudi gently escorts Ben away from the mirror, and guides him towards an enormous glass desk. As they stood there, music began to play. Ben listens to the familiar lyrics from Kid Cudi's song Mr. Rager, which says, "When will the fantasy end? When will the heaven begin?" As the music continues to play, Kid Cudi comes up from behind Ben and asks, "Are you ready?" "Yeah." Then Kid Cudi suddenly yells at Ben to go now. Thinking he was going to heaven, Ben was rudely awakened to find himself back on the cold, hard floor of Westlake High School. Above him, he sees two blurry figures that slowly come into focus. The two paramedics are standing over him, relieved. "Phew, that's one big smile you've got on your face. Bet you're glad to be back, bud." Back? This was the last place he wanted to be. He wanted to go where he had just been, and he never wanted to leave. A day later, on December 19th, Ben sits down at his desk, reaches into a drawer, pulls out a stack of index cards, and begins writing on them. Then, sitting in front of his green screen, he turns on his computer, camera, lights, and microphone, and starts to record. Ben began to show the note cards in the order he had written them, holding up each card for a few seconds before moving to the next card. Without saying a word, he told the world his story and about how the bright white light and vision with Kid Cudi brought him so much peace and happiness. Still smiling from ear to ear, Ben describes his experience before he gets to one of the last cards in the pile, which reads, "I wish I never woke up." Then, before the viewer can even absorb the meaning of that statement, he flips it again. This time, it's a question for his viewers. Do you believe in angels or God? Holding one more card in his hand, he flips it over. It simply read, "I do." Ben stares into the computer screen one final time before the video cuts away. 6 days later, it's Christmas. Ben was startled awake by his little brother, Jake. It was 7:03 a.m. The family headed downstairs together and began opening presents, keeping up with the tradition of starting with the youngest to oldest. It was the perfect day filled with hot chocolate, good food, and a lot of love and laughter. Later that evening, and still dressed in their pajamas, Ben and Jake take their new GoPro camera outside to test it out as Jake jumps on the trampoline while Ben films. As their mother, Deanne, prepares dinner, she looks out the window to see Ben laughing and smiling with his brother before looking at the clock. It was 4:45 p.m. Not more than 2 minutes later, Jake flings open the kitchen door and shouts, "Mom, Ben doesn't feel good." The urgency in his voice told her it was serious, and she rushed out the door and was at Ben's side in seconds. She eases him down underneath a big willow tree as his eyes begin to glaze over. Deanne started doing CPR, but he wasn't breathing and she couldn't detect a heartbeat. Paramedics arrive, giving him several shots of epinephrine and multiple shocks from the AED, but Ben remains blue and unconscious. In the middle of their attempts to bring him back, his father sees Ben's hands curl up in a tight, contorted way. At that point, he was sure his son had left his body before he's taken away in an ambulance. Benjamin Daniel Breedlove died on Christmas Day. His funeral was held on December 29th at the Gateway Church in Austin, Texas, where more than 1,400 people attended the service and another 11,000 watched online. The day after Ben's death, Kid Cudi publicly announced how, "This has really touched my heart in a way I can't describe. This is why I do what I do." He would also later dedicate his album, Indie Cud, to Ben and all of his fans that have died.